Thank you very much for that introduction. Yep, part of my job in the mitigation mission, of course, y'all probably familiar with Firewise USA Communities, but a lot of the risk reduction that we do on grant-funded burns for private landowners is the use of prescribed fire, and that's the way we go about that. So there was a predecessor of mine in the eastern part of the state. He started a lot of the work that I'm going to be talking about, but you know, he moved on to another position with the North Carolina Forest Service, and a lot of it has kind of come my direction. So sorry to be joining you virtually. Do have an SAF meeting that I'm currently at in South Carolina. We have the Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina are all combined, and I had some obligations at this meeting that I had to attend to. I originally did plan on being there in person and actually had a reservation at the Penn Stater until I had to back out of it. So I'm going to go ahead and get my presentation pulled up here. All right, you should be seeing a gray screen.
Yeah, Wes, we see it.
All right, thank you very much for the confirmation. So I'm going to talk today about our certified burner program and kind of how that has gone about expanding prescribed fire capacity on private lands. You know, looking across the Southeast, you know, we have a good reputation for burning. I've been doing it a long time, starting to be copied out west, you know, where in places where they can execute it. And talking to colleagues, it sounds like it's going up into the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast a little bit. So I'm encouraged to see that that model kind of getting spread around. But you can always improve on a good thing. So that's what we did. You know, looked in North Carolina. You've got agencies like the U.S. Forest Service shown here on the right. You got your hand crews marching around, well-funded, highly trained, established burn programs. Over on the left here, you see Fort Bragg is kind of in the south central part of North Carolina. You can see them there with their torch burning off ranges. Again, these are, you know, well-established programs. And that's kind of what we wanted, to take that level of efficiency and start applying it to our private lands. As I mentioned in the opening, we do have pass-through funds from U.S. Forest Service that North Carolina Forest Service can provide burning at no cost to landowners. But due to burn windows, due to our own vacancies, having a little bit of staffing issues, which I think everybody in natural resources is dealing with that to some extent. So you have a lot more burn units that are laid out, a lot more things that are planned than you can get to. Typically in North Carolina, we have a spring fire season, fall fire season to a lesser extent, as far as, you know, kind of our burn windows for wildfire suppression. And then on the dormant season in between those two, you're really trying to get most of your prescribed burning done. So looking at these models here, that's what we said, okay, we need to take this and move that to some private lands. So a lot of assumptions in North Carolina. Look at the western North Carolina. You see right over here, all this purple is publicly owned. That's the North Carolina portion of the Smoky Mountains National Park. You've got Blue Ridge Parkway runs through North Carolina, significant portion of it. You know, National Park Service maintains that. You've got a lot of Nantahala, Pisgah National Forest is a lot of the purple that you see. But even with assumptions of, you know, that's all public land out there, you can see that almost 70% of the forest land, you got the white, of course, what you're looking at is non-forest land. Asheville, kind of that urban sprawl that you see in here going down into Henderson County, down the I-26 corridor, a lot of urban areas development. But just looking at the forest land here, the way to go, if you're looking to increase fire on the landscape, is to go on private lands. So we have a prescribed fire subcommittee, working group. It's kind of going back and forth with its terminology, but we did a analysis of ways that we could go and increase prescribed fire on private lands. The first thing we looked at was our parameters, acceptable smoke parameters. You see a picture here of our smoke management program document. When the Prescribed Fire Act was passed in the late 90s, I think it was 98. The smoke management program was part of that. That's a living document. The Fire Environment Committee goes and updates that on a periodic basis. But we looked at ways that we could, widen those acceptable parameters, our weather parameters. Once you get that initial burn on there, then you can maybe widen out a little bit, move towards some of that growing season burning that I heard the previous speaker mentioning. Finding ways to increase your canvas that you have to work with when it comes to prescribed burning. Atmospheric dispersion modeling is another thing that we're trying to put forward. Days when based on smoke management categories that you may be out for burning, use of atmospheric dispersion modeling to bring a burn into acceptable parameters. We've got a whole separate training program that we're putting forward, more authorized users of that that can handle more incoming requests to put those models out. And then efficiency, just overall in the planning, coordination, readiness, working with cooperators. Blew my mind recently, I guess it was 2 years ago, was at a prescribed burn on a state forest. We were burning and saw a couple of people from the U.S. Forest Service walk up. I mean, it's the coordination has always been there, reciprocal zones and whatnot, but it's always been, the state coming to help the feds. And it's really a thing of beauty to see that partnership and collaboration build to the point now where it's, you got them showing up on state burns. We work hand in hand with our nonprofit partners, U.S. Forest Service partners, just kind of building that collaboration. So all that is moving along, but really the most important thing, you got all these tweaks you can make, but the most important thing is increasing the number of people that are burning. And that takes training, that takes experience. So I mentioned in the late 90s, we did have the Prescribed Fire Act, and that came along with a certified burner program. So we have a standard of negligence. A lot of other southeastern states have gross negligence as their standard. That is something we're looking. Got lobbyists and all the natural resource professionals trying to push North Carolina into that gross negligence standard for impacts from smoke. But as it stands right now, it's simple negligence, and to get the protection from the Prescribed Fire Act, you have to complete a certified burner program. Lots of other states have this. I've been through the one in South Carolina, the one in Georgia. They're all pretty similar. Zach Prusek, I think, is going to come on and talk a little bit more about the nuts and bolts of that here after a break or after lunch in the agenda. So I'm not gonna beat that horse a whole lot, but getting more people out there, more landowners, more of these NGO land trust type folks, getting them out there certified to carry that mission forward. So here's a picture of the certified burner program. You see a big laminated sheet there. David Greathouse, if anybody's ever run into him, out on fires out west, fire behavior analyst, gets around a good bit. But this used to be our path. We'd have classes. It was a 3-day course. People go and sit in a classroom. You can see the front table there. And they get practice filling out burn plans. They get training on the Prescribed Fire Act, getting familiar with that language, going over smoke management, looking at fuels, giving them basic information on fuels, weather factors that affect fire behavior, kind of give them an introduction to firing techniques, what they're going to need to do to adjust to gain that fire behavior that they're looking to get for their meet their objectives on their prescribed burn. We also cover mop up, safely putting the fire to bed, and then post-burn evaluation. what you're going to be doing, in the weeks following the burn, to go through and make sure that you met your objectives that were listed in your burn plan. There's a field day portion where you're going around. We take them to, in the former setup, we had everything was right there at the host site, wherever, we'd move that around the state. Usually 3 offerings per year is kind of the target, but then COVID happened, and all this kind of came screeching to a halt, as most things did in our society. And the way that we worked around that to keep this program rolling was to go virtual. The all too familiar Zoom screen, that my face is coming on to you now. We moved our certified burner program to that format. We stuck with the same content, delivered, with more frequent breaks, and kind of spread that over 2 days. And then we still have a field day portion where we take them around, much in the same way we did before. We're focused on places with a recent prescribed burn they can look at, places with a similar forest type across the way, that they can write their plan, and then practice and get around and kick in the forest litter, look, fill out all the metrics that are required for their burn plans. We really try, if we can get a state forest, a state park, wildlife game lands, if we can go on some of these where more established burn programs are, and we can take them around and show them, here's what one burn looks like. Here's what it looks like after 2 burns. Here's one that is recently burned. Here's one that's further off. So kind of taking them around and giving them that insight, kind of looking into the future is what we try to do. We have, since coming out of COVID restrictions, we have stuck with this model of blended learning. We've found out that we can get more people in, rather than move around the state, different places, and have folks travel. You're able to grab more people from further out, and then the field sessions will usually bust into it's usually 6 or 7 different sites kind of spread around the state. And then we'll take members of the cadre and others from partner agencies and host those field days where they still get that boots on the ground, interaction and burn plan practice. I think our capacity for doing this is a lot higher. We're getting a lot more of the folks through. As you mentioned, as you see here on the screen, the demand for this is through the roof. So registration, we open up a registration window, and it's a day or 2, if not within a matter of hours, that it fills up. So we decided to go ahead and stick with the blended approach. We are going to start working in some in-person. If we get NC State is one that has come to us and said, hey, if we've got a certain number of people that we can have a training all in one place, we'll certainly work that in. Generational differences, some folks are not as handy with the Zoom technology, not really loving staring at a computer. They want to go, they want to scratch their notes on paper, they want to hear people talk, they want to be able to ask the instantaneous follow-up questions. And it's hard to argue with the success of some of that over the years. One feedback that we did get through this program, going from the blended nature that we're doing now and the in-person that we did before, was always the follow-up. You go through, you sit through the classes, you practice writing your burn plans, but then a second part to be a certified burner in North Carolina is you've got to write a plan of your own, and you've got to execute a burn under the tutelage, mentorship of another certified burner to get signed off before you can send your stuff into the fire chief to be considered. That's something you've got to do. And for a lot of people, they found that problematic. The networking, being able to get a hold of another certified burner to kind of carry them through the end of that process. So to address this, back in 2019, the fellow I was mentioning down in the eastern part of the state, he set up a pilot program for prescribed fire mentoring. We had a couple of retirees who they made temporary employees, kind of a as needed temporary employee. And they've got a certain amount of hours they would come, help out with outreach some, but mainly that direct mentoring, getting out with recent certified burner graduates and carrying them over the finish line. This was around Bladen Lakes State Forest. It's kind of down in the southeast part of the state. And through their interactions and their regular meetings and going around, landowners started helping landowners. Recent graduates started, passing the torch and going on and grabbing another landowner. And if any of this is starting to sound familiar, it's some of their accomplishments here. Mike and Hugh, participants mentored, combined hours, some of those, and these are out of date. 10 individuals carried to the finish line. That was right there in COVID-19. So if any of that setup that I mentioned is starting to sound familiar, it's because it already exists. Those of you familiar with prescribed burn associations, started out in Oklahoma. It's the first time I heard about it. I think I was at a South Carolina Prescribed Fire Council back in, 2010, 2011. Was the first time that it kind of showed up on my radar. And this is just a group of people helping each other burn, people coming together to learn about and apply prescribed fire. So you've got a network of professionals, both government and NGO. We've got a pretty healthy group that I'll get to highlighting here in a little bit, but sharing resources. Somebody's got a tractor, got a set of forestry harrows on the back of it. They can go help their neighbor down the road. And that was really the nexus of all of it, was ranchers helping other ranchers burn. So PBAs, for those that aren't familiar, can provide outreach, education. People get together and do training. Sense of community. Once you get neighbors helping neighbors burn, that really does foster, being tighter knit group. And then of course the action, the deliverable is always the fire on the ground. So this, as I said, Oklahoma State, out there, Oklahoma is kind of where it got its start. But really, a PBA can look like whatever you need it to. You got down there at the bottom of the screen, the Mid-Missouri River. They're trying to keep cedar trees from encroaching on their grazing lands. Down there in the bottom, you got California. It's more of a wildfire mitigation, kind of a mission with the tragic losses they've had out there in recent years with fires getting bigger and bigger and overrunning places. Texas Panhandle, North Florida. I got the one over here to the right is one in North Carolina. One of our oldest, I think it's kind of a 1A, 1B type situation. Sand Hills PBA. We got some ancient sand dunes kind of around the middle of our state between the coastal plain and the Piedmont. These areas dry out very quickly. Have a lot of our fires that we go out and suppress as an agency are located in this area. But it's also home to the longleaf pine and RCW, red cockaded woodpecker, endangered species. So a lot of fire dependent ecosystems. So Jesse Wimberly is the guy that runs that, and he's really kind of the model that we've based a lot of our other PBAs on. So that is a main mission of a lot of our PBAs. We took some grant money and got some of these burn trailers. We've got 4 of them that are around the state. Some of them are dedicated to one PBA. Others are kind of stationed between 2 PBAs, but these are to go out and have landowners borrow them. We kind of come out and deliver it, drop it off when somebody identifies a burn window. And, got the wrap on there. So it's a public relations tool as well when it's moving around. These are equipped with fire rakes, leaf blowers, torches. You got a portable tank that you see right in here. You can put on a UTV or a 4-wheeler. Burn signs back in the corner. So just everything that that a landowner would need to execute a burn. Now, these are some of the I mentioned the Sand Hills and the Bladen Lakes were the first two. The Hugh and Hugh Frazier and the other mentor there. They're kind of in the southeast part. You got the Bladen Lake State Forest kind of serves as its foothold. Sand Hills, Jesse Wimberly I mentioned, being right there, kind of Moore County in the surrounding area, and that's really the model we've gone after. You got the first one in Western North Carolina came on a couple of years ago. Southern Blue Ridge Prescribed Burn Association got their logo down there at the bottom, and then we've just received word that one of our partners applied for some seed money to start a new one, and that's you'll see it on the next screen here. Catawba River, I think, is the name they're going to go after, but they are just in their infancy. The Charlotte metropolitan area, right there on the South Carolina, North Carolina line, and the areas, the counties to the north of there. So here's a map, kind of detailing some of that footprint. Started out down here in Bladen County, the state forest, the fire mentors, then it spread up to the Sand Hills. You'll see sometimes you have counties that we kind of assign to both, either type situation. That's the case with Cumberland County there. Pitt over here as well. I can certainly see this going this direction. The Southern Blue Ridge Mountains come through here. You have the escarpment kind of cuts Caldwell and Burke in half. So I can definitely see that being a shared situation into the future. Once this new PBA here kind of in that north of Charlotte, southern Piedmont area gets going. But the mission of all of these is the same, to take those certified burner graduates. And granted, you're going to have some that are in it for the CFEs. They're going to be going through there. Thanks for the CFEs. I've met my requirement for this year, and moving on. Some of them are general information seekers. You have landowners that hear a lot about prescribed burning. They want to know more, and they'll sign up and go through the online portion only. Some of them don't even make it out to the field day. So you do have that level of participation, but we can pretty easily kind of toss that out and say, okay, they've met their mission. But that core group that are looking to finish their certified burner, get signed off, get protection from the Prescribed Burn Act, and regularly put fire on the ground, whether it's on theirs or around their neighbors. That's who we're looking to support with these PBAs. So I mentioned seed money for the one in the Charlotte area, and the Southern Blue Ridge actually went through the same process. See down here at the bottom, coalitions and collaboratives. For those that aren't familiar, they're out of Colorado. They have an AIM grant is what they call it, Action Implementation of Mitigation. And you can apply for grant funds. And we had our second winner this year, just announced here in the last few days. So Community Wildfire Defense Grant is another source. They're buying equipment. If you're looking to stand up some of these burn trailers for yourselves, if you have that written into a CWPP, then that is eligible. They're going to be putting forward their second round of funding. I think it'll be kind of back to back, announcing the first go rounds winners, and then opening up. I think it's going to be a 90-day period. So opportunities to get equipment, CWDG, just make sure it's listed in a CWPP. The original trailers that we have, the 4 that I referenced, they all came from an LSR grant. So a lot of this is U.S. Forest Service money. It's just coming through different channels. You get the LSR grant, was kind of that landscape scale restoration grant is what we were looking to use for those 4 trailers. Another recent award winner, I mentioned the Sand Hills PBA. They've got a combination between them and the Uwharrie National Forest, which is kind of south central. They've got a Uwharrie to the Sand Hills collaboration, and they've got some Joint Chiefs Award for that. That's NRCS and Forest Service. I got asked the other day what Joint Chiefs, what the military had to do with it. You know, everybody thinks about Joint Chiefs of Staff, but you know, it's Forest Service and NRCS chiefs getting together. So NGOs, we are blessed in Western North Carolina. I handle the Western 50 counties for some of my duties, and some of my duties are statewide. Have a counterpart that handles Firewise for the Western 50 counties, but we are really in a good situation. I mentioned the collaboration between government agencies, but then the folks here that you're looking at are invaluable to pushing forward the overall mission of prescribed burning. Nature Conservancy, Adam Warwick, if anybody's ever seen him on one of these calls, he wrote a book, Fire Manager's Guide to Ecotones in this Southern Blue Ridge. It's a great publication. They put together a 20-person at will kind of an as needed burn crew. So they get out and they help prep on state lands, U.S. Forest Service lands. But then, you know, a lot of our grant burning that we're doing on private lands, they actually jump in there and will help with both prep and execution. Ember Alliance is out of Colorado, but that Joint Chiefs Award for the Uwharrie National Forest, they're actually going to hire a crew, kind of a similar model. I think it's only going to be 4 or 5, and they're going to be working in the Uwharrie Sand Hills footprint. So glad to see the Ember Alliance coming to North Carolina. Conservation Corps, we got some folks come out of there, some retired North Carolina Forest Service recently running that crew, and they come out and support as well. Moving to the bottom, Appalachian RC&Ds. For those that are familiar with RC&Ds, Resource Conservation and Development Councils, we've got 4 of them in Western North Carolina that have taken on the wildfire mitigation mission in addition to their normal, you know, natural resource work, and we work back and forth with them. Local county staff, folks out of the districts, as well as myself, you know, plugging in, kind of all pushing the same direction. Forest Stewards Guild is another one. Does heavily involved with learning burns, you know, kind of getting out there, doing the organizing, doing the outreach, and then getting in touch with the professionals to kind of host and execute these learning burns. Everybody pushing in one direction is, I mean, it's paying benefits.